It is an honor and an extreme pleasure for me to introduce this next gentleman. John Padalino, was named Acting Administrator of the Rural Utility Services on September 16, 2012. Mr. Padalino appointment follows his role as the Acting Administrator on the Rural Business and Cooperative Service. Prior to the post, John served as the Acting Principal Deputy General Counsel for the Office of General Counsel, and also as Chief of Staff for the Rural Development Undersecretary, Mr. Dallas Tonginger. Mr. Padalino holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Texas in Austin and a law degree from Rutgers School of Law. In his professional career, John has practiced in El Paso, Texas, where he represented rural water districts, litigated complex commercial cases, and brief cases before the appellate courts of Texas and the United States Courts of Appeal. Prior to becoming a lawyer, Mr. Padalino worked in the water and the wastewater industry. Currently, RUS has over $60 billion in assets to finance electric, telecommunications, water and wastewater utilities serving rural areas nationwide. On a personal level, over the past 4 years, I have gotten to know John very well. Ladies and gentlemen, rural America and rural water runs through this man's veins. He is our friend, and he is a friend of rural America. This is a true partnership based on the shared beliefs and a passion to serve. The same beliefs and the same passion that drove each of you from around this great nation to be here. So I asked you, the rural water family, to welcome home the administrator, our administrator, Mr. John Charles Padalino.
Well, thank you, President Anderton. That was very kind words indeed. It's great to be with you all here in Washington, D.C. Being with Waterfolk is like a family reunion, so thank you for saying coming home. It really is kind of like a homecoming for me. I bring greetings from President Obama, and I'm sure he extends his warm welcome to the nation's capital, and today, the day he's going to deliver his remarks for the State of the Union to the U.S. Congress. Also, Secretary Vilsack sends his regards, as does Undersecretary Dallas Tonginger. And again, thank you, President Anderton, and thank you, Executives Rob Johnson, Sam Wade. And you mentioned that we've gotten to know each other over the last 4 years, and I've gotten to know a lot of you all over the last 4 years, and especially Rob and Sam. You know, I really consider you all friends and mentors, and anytime they come to town, we try to get together, have a meal, and just our discussions that we have, it's really good, and I appreciate it, and thank you all for being there, and thank you for what you do. I understand that this is Rob Johnson's last rally. I kind of thought I was in the last rally, but maybe it was a road race. You know, Rob says maybe we're going to start a race in Nashville called the Opryland 500, because he was taking this turn, and what was it, a 300? We had one of those 300 cars, and he said, avoid the medians. That's all I know. And somehow the rubber did not stay connected to the wheel. And but Bill, you did a good job of changing the tire, and thank you so much. I also understand it's Fred Shelton's last rally, and he's retiring. And I think what that says is, you know, there's a changing of the guard in so many of our institutions across America, whether it's rural water, over at Rural Electric, they're having a leadership change as folks are retiring and, you know, trying to enjoy the later part of their life. So just for all of you that are, you know, kind of finding yourselves on the way out in a good way, taking some time off to spend time with family and kids and grandkids, you know, thank you all for what you do. And, you know, I was watching the Super Bowl last Sunday. Won't say who I was going for. They didn't win. Probably because the quarterback kept calling audibles, which is kind of the story of my life. People keep calling audibles. I'm like a good slot back. But anyways, I don't know if you all will watch the Super Bowl or watch the commercials at halftime, but I didn't know this commercial was going, and later on I'll talk a little bit about what Secretary Vilsack's talking about as far as rural relevance. But this commercial comes up, and it's kind of a white, grainy screen, and then Paul Harvey's beautiful voice just starts talking about why God created farmers, and and then at the end it ended with 2013, the year of the farmer. But I thought he talked about all the hard work, the courage, the leadership of folks who wake up and milk the cows again and fix things with baling wire and duct tape and just, put in 14, 15-hour days just because, and then stay up all night to go to the school board meeting. And I think, in many ways, you could just change farmer for water operator, wastewater operator, circuit rider, rural American. And that commercial fits so many things of what we do. And it just, by the end of the commercial, I was on the road, so I was calling my wife and I was crying, and I'm like, what a great commercial. Even, they were selling Dodge trucks, I guess, but it was really the theme that they were talking about, that I think many times across America, the senator talked about it as well, that folks in the cities and suburbs, they forget how important rural America is, how important our farmers and ranchers are, how important everything that you all do. And I think about, when I was a water operator and I'd be out fixing a main break or something, and you'd know that the person who's yelling at you because the water is off maybe didn't quite realize everything it took to turn the water on. They just get up in the morning and fill their glass of water, take a bath, whatever, and they don't think about all the hard work that folks like you all do. So thank you for being there. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being good public servants and working with your rural water systems out there. Thank you so much. The senator mentioned the work with veterans, and Secretary Vilsack has really taken a leadership role in trying to promote hiring veterans that are returning from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he's this week, I think, talking to some folks in Texas about how veterans can get involved in the farming and ranching community. And so for all of you that are veterans, I come from a family of veterans, thank you for your service, and thank you for doing what you did to enable us to be here today. So sometimes in life, events happen, and you can call them signposts in life. And it's just a reminder of what's important. And I know I've had those throughout my life, and I think as a country we've had those many times. And, just last fall we had another one of those reminders with Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy. And what it did is it reminded us how important water is, how important it is for economic opportunity, how important it is for a community's vitality, how modern, reliable water and waste service makes it possible for families to survive and to stay healthy, for schools and hospitals to serve, and for businesses to succeed. And I know you all know and understand and how much you take your responsibilities seriously. I was just telling some folks, I take a little pride, and when I was a water operator, I was the Y2K compliance officer for the water utility I worked for. Sometimes that gets a chuckle, because I think we all know our plants didn't care what year it was, but we went through the motions of checking every chip in those panels, because we take our job seriously, and we knew how important it is for those folks to be able to turn on the water when they wanted it to be there. And, I think Hurricane Sandy reminded us of that, and reminded us of how hard and how dedicated our water operators are, that in the midst of a disaster like Sandy, they go above and beyond the call of duty. We were in the USDA Rural Utility Service, we were kind of watching this scene unfold, and, we come in usually at the later part of a disaster, but we were working with you all in the rural water associations and really monitoring what was going on, especially in New Jersey. And, Long Beach Township, right on the shore of New Jersey, 3,000 people, a small water system out there, was forced to deal with this. But if you think about that water system, their planning didn't happen the week before as we saw the storm down in the Caribbean. It didn't even happen a month before as maybe it was a cloud off the coast of Africa. It happened years before. It happened when they hired their operator, Michael Clark. It happened when they sent Michael to training. It happened when they sat down with pen and paper and developed an emergency response plan, when they made investments to have generators and all the different tools that they ended up using when Sandy hit. You know, out there in Long Beach Township, the power went out. The natural gas generators came online because they had planned ahead to keep the plants online. And, you know, as the storm progressed and people were evacuated, the shutdown procedures for 2 of the plants were implemented, but those operators, they stayed there. And they saw the damage that Sandy created. They saw the water mains destroyed, the fire hydrants shredded. They saw 5 feet of water and salt water and sand. And many times they were the only ones who had equipment to get around the island. And even though most people couldn't get around, it was the water operators who were taking their bulldozers and really not just helping with the water facilities, but helping with the whole community. And I mentioned Michael Clark, and he and his staff out there at Long Beach Township, they were going house to house, door to door, making sure that folks were alive, that they were safe if they didn't have a chance to get off the island. They worked 12 to 20 hours for 35 days straight until all the systems came back online. During that process, they even helped rescue some of the residents and bring them to safety. And, you know, folks like Michael, folks like the New Jersey Rural Water Association, they provided generators, and the association provided circuit riders to assist in the effort. And it was just an amazing effort. It was amazing to see when Americans come together, how many great things we can do. And we can do it in a disaster. We can do it for economic opportunity. We can do it for anything we set our minds to. And I don't know if Dave Lester's here from New Jersey Rural Water, but he's a circuit rider out there. And what Dave did was work with the community, work with the regulators. They were under a boil water notice and worked so that that order could be lifted once those plants came online and folks could have access to safe, reliable drinking water. So today, the service is restored and Long Beach Township is on its way to recovery. I tell that story because what it does is it reminds us how important investment is. You heard the senator talk about the different programs in the government and whether we should fund this or that, and he mentioned maybe a program like the one we administer over at the Rural Utilities Service, maybe that should get a little more money. But what it reminds us is that investment is so important because it's investment in constructing the physical infrastructure. It's investment in planning and preparation. Investment in technical and training assistance. It's investment in a qualified workforce. And what those investments do is create sustainable systems. The systems that are equally capable of serving the daily water and waste needs of rural families and businesses that are facing disasters like Hurricane Sandy, or, see my friend from South Carolina there, I know he's done a lot of work in using his water system for economic opportunities, and I'm sure a lot of you all have done that as well. But one thing we know is these investments aren't optional. At Rural Development, we understand this. As the Rural Utilities Administrator, I understand this, and we're proud to play our part in ensuring that the network of rural water and waste systems is strong and sustainable. So just last year, we invested over $1.4 billion in loans and grants and loan guarantees to 845 water and waste projects that benefited almost 2.5 million rural residents. We're pleased to report that 97% of our Recovery Act projects are at the bid point or beyond, and you know how important that is to be at the bid point or beyond. And just last year, we hit 362 of those Recovery Act projects being completed. That's 208 more than last year. So what an incredible job. And I don't know, is anyone from the great state of Missouri here? I saw John somewhere around here. There y'all are. Stand up and congratulations, because Missouri had the first Recovery Act project of ours completed. So thank you, Missouri. Thank you. Not to be outdone, Nevada and Rhode Island have completed all of their Recovery Act projects. Michigan, I don't know if I've seen Tim around, I'm sure he's around, but Michigan has completed the highest number of Recovery Act projects, 36, and probably because the Undersecretary is from South Dakota. Where's Denny? I must report that South Dakota is just behind Michigan with 32 Recovery Act projects completed. So thanks to all of those, and thanks to the work you're doing to help those projects move along and get completed. We have nearly 400 in the hopper that are expected to be completed this year. And I wish the senator could hear about the progress of the Ozark Regional Water System out in Arkansas. But that project's going to end up connecting 4 counties, 19 systems, and just this summer we think it'll be completed, and we're so excited about that. But no matter large or small, these Recovery Act investments will provide critical infrastructure and economic opportunity to rural America. So we've done a little over $1.5 billion in investments, all the Recovery Act work, and in addition to that, we did over $38.5 million to groups like yours to help provide technical assistance and training. And just that money, what it did was provide 100,000 technical assistance calls over the last year, thousands of rural board members trained, and new tools and guides developed to help the rural water systems. At the Rural Utility Service, we continue our focus on sustainability. We're hosting workshops for the rural systems to help them assess their current status and developing strategies to increase sustainability and working with our partners to promote sustainability. And Tim, you raised your hand in the back. Thank you to the Michigan Rural Water Association, and thank you for what you did. And Jimmy Matthews, I think I heard you earlier during the PAC rally, but there you are. You were trying to hide. Thank you, Tim and Jimmy, for hosting a sustainability workshops, and thank you for the guidance you provided on the tools. And I've been around rural utilities, rural development, but I really want to thank Jackie Pani-Lazaruk, and I see John Melhu's there, and I know Steve Saulnier's around. I want to thank Jackie, and especially Jackie. When I was asked to come on board as the administrator, I don't know if you all know the gentleman, Jim Newby. Where's John Montgomery? I know he knows Jim pretty well. Jim was planning to retire, and I knew that, and I was, well, who's going to be my chief of staff? Who's going to be my right-hand person? And Jackie and I, we've become friends professionally and personally over the last 4 years. And I went straight to Jackie and said, hey, like so many of us in the government, you might need to wear 2 or 3 hats, but will you not only do your job of running the water program, but serve as my chief of staff? And thank you, Jackie, for what you did, and thank you to all my staff here. And the Rural Utility Service is such an amazing operation. It's been there for 75 years to serve you all, to serve rural America. But our role is no less critical. Our role is no less critical today than it was 7 decades ago. A strong rural water network leads to a strong rural America, and a strong rural America leads to a stronger America, where food, energy, goods, and services are plentiful. Rural communities continue to seek funding to build, expand, and modernize water and waste infrastructure. Our backlog exceeds $3 billion. When I came on board 4 years ago, our backlog was $3 billion. And I know Jackie and John and the folks in the Rural Utility Service keep getting the money out, but the backlog keeps staying the same. And what that means is the need is there, the need is great, and it's not optional. But the environment that we work in has changed. I don't have to tell you that competition for federal dollars is high, and that federal agencies are asked to do more with less. And I think some people say at some point we may have to do less with less. And I see my friends from CoBank back there, and thank you all for being such good partners. And I think in many ways we'll have to explore more opportunities to work together in partnership. And within our rural development mission area, what we've done over the past couple of years is, as our operational funds, our administrative budget has been reduced, we've approached that first by asking some folks who are looking at retiring to take a buyout to help ease some of the stress on our administrative budget. That's reduced some of our workforce, maybe even cut down some of the travel dollars that we have out there. So we have to keep thinking as an agency, how can we continue to serve you all, working with partners like CoBank, working with partners like Rural Water, working with other federal agencies, and that's what we're going to be doing over the year ahead, is training field staff in new and innovative ways. We're going to work to standardize and automate the preliminary engineering report. We're going to work to with the EPA and our other federal partners to streamline or standardize the environmental regulations. We're going to streamline our emergency water grant regulations, and we're working with our field offices to more efficiently deliver our programs. I don't know if our friends from Alaska are here, but you know, I just read that off as goals, and it sounds good, and you've probably heard administrators say that before. But I mention Alaska because when I was the assistant to the administrator then, Administrator Adelstein, Jackie and I, we partnered up with EPA, the Indian Health Service, even worked with Alaska Rural Water, all kinds of partners, and we did many of the things that I just talked about as far as streamlining of trying to get these agencies to use one PER, that's the engineering report, one set of environmental documents. So I know we've done it, and if we can do it in one state, we can do it in all 50 states. But what we need to do is hear from you all. And I know I have a good relationship with Rural Water, and I want to continue that and let you know that my email's always open, my door's always open, my phone's always there, and Jackie and her staff are always there to listen to you all. Because whatever we do, it may not be perfect, but we're always striving to make it more perfect. And those words are in the Constitution, just like the words, "we the people." And it's very important for us to hear from the people, from you all, and from the people that you hear, so that we can continue to be responsive as the government. We want to hear from you about how we target our funds, how we advance sustainability, and we really want to hear from you all on how you're getting the word out on why rural water is so important. 4 years ago, Sam and I started talking about, you know, not just rural water, but rural America is important. Rural matters. And thank you, Sam, for the work you've done and taken leadership of trying to push that as an agenda forward. Last fall at the Rural Water Conference, when Rob was being a race car driver, I saw a great presentation from Tennessee that really mapped out across the state of all those rural communities of where manufacturing's happening. And I mentioned Charles in South Carolina. We've talked about that before, and many of you, we've talked about it. And I think if you listen to what Secretary Vilsack's talking about, you know, he's coming from a perspective of today. Despite needing a farm bill, we still do not have a farm bill. And he's frustrated about it. And in one way he started thinking about it is we need to make rural relevant for all of America. And I think part of that comes from going out and talking about how our rural communities and how our rural water systems are providing the water to these manufacturers, and how these manufacturers' goods and services are supporting the economy, not just of rural America, but of all of America. And what Secretary Vilsack talks about is that, you know, 98% of Americans today live off the farm. Almost 84% of Americans are in the metro areas, 16% are in the rural areas. And in some ways, as rural America gets smaller by people, we, as rural Americans, need to go and talk to those folks in the cities and in the suburbs. And we need to remind them that despite being 16% of the population, that we're 40% of the armed services. That despite being 16% of the population, through conservation efforts and the work that you all do on the water quality side, we're preserving and protecting 88% of the water that flows across our lands. That like those farmers in that Paul Harvey commercial, that we're always approaching problems with new and innovative solutions. And those solutions might be used in rural America, but they're used across all of America. And we need to tell that stories to chambers of commerce, from the big cities to the small cities and everywhere in between, so that these folks understand how important a farm bill is, how important rural America is to their quality of life as well. Let me conclude just by talking about 3 factors that are my priorities this year. And like CoBank, I've followed the 3 C's, and I think that shows that we can be a good partnership. My 3 C's are connectivity, capacity, and creativity. And what does connectivity mean? Are all Americans, rural Americans, connected to a safe, reliable water system? If the answer is no, let's work together to make that answer a yes. That's connections. That's getting people connected to a water system. Capacity. That's talking about having extra capacity so that when a manufacturer comes to your board and says, hey, do you have some capacity? You say, yes, I have some capacity. So that our efforts on the water side are promoting economic opportunity for our rural communities. And creativity. I see Mel Ost here, and I think about the work you did previously with the solar system out in California? Are we using the latest technologies? Are we being creative so that we can help make our system sustainable? So that's connectivity, that's capacity, and that's creativity. So as many of you know, I'm a water guy. I'm so proud to be the Rural Utilities Administrator, so proud to be friends with all of you, and I look forward to working with you all over the next year. Thank you.